Gaming through time.
Hi, I'm Steven. That's Erock. We're from Just Got Played, and we are gaming through time.
Yes.
All right. So what does gaming through time mean? We started way back 1975 and some mentions before that. And we've been going through year by year talking about our favorite games that were first published that year and the top rated game on BoardGameGeek website from that year. We've been going through this for a while. If you missed any of those earlier episodes, look down in the comments below. I've got links to all those videos, but we are here almost at the finish line. This is the next to the last episode. We're going to cover 2015 through 2019 today.
Almost caught up to real time here.
Yeah. and then there's a treat for you in the next episode. All right. So, but are you ready to get started, Erock?
Absolutely. Let's kick this off.
All right, man. Why don't you tell me what you've got for 2015?
2015. So I'm just going to say right up front, it's been about a year and a half since I ranked my games or ranked games in general. But the last time I did, I swear to you, the next 5 choices of mine are my number 1 through 5. So that might not necessarily be true, but it was true the last time I ranked these, and they must have held up because they're still my top 5. So, or at least they're the choices for these years. So for 2015, my choice is Pandemic Legacy Season 1. I'm pretty confident that this is going to cross over with the Geek because I still believe it's the number 2 game of all time on the Geek. So it's pretty impossible for it not to be a crossover here. But I absolutely love Pandemic Legacy. I don't like Pandemic. I think Pandemic's kind of boring and it's formulaic, and there's a way it's totally prone to the alpha gamer. It's just not my speed at all. I don't like Pandemic. But this is in my top 5. This game is fantastic. Part of it probably has to do with the experience of just being around when this thing happened, because it was really the first Legacy game that worked. I also played Risk Legacy. That was okay. But it didn't start groundbreaking new genre. You know what I'm saying? I mean, technically, I guess it did. But really, this is the one that exploded it. Because it's just so well done. You play with the same group of people over 12 or more missions, and you don't know what's going to happen. And that makes such a formulaic game like Pandemic completely different, because you just don't know what's going to happen in the next month. So all of your planning and all of your smart moves and everything, it might not have meant anything. Maybe the craziest thing that somebody in your group thought to do actually was the right thing to do for what happened in the next month. It was such an amazing experience. I haven't played it in quite a while. If I re-ranked my games, this one would probably fall out of my top 5, but that probably just means it's time to play it again, really. So for me, Pandemic Legacy is fantastic. It will always hold a place in my heart, if not my top 5.
Wow. So I actually like base Pandemic. I have a weird copy of it that is like a not for sale version, officially licensed version made for some Eurozone conference of transmissible diseases among animals.
Does it say all that on it?
Yeah, like it's all on there.
Awesome.
It's just I have this really weird, officially licensed copy of Pandemic. I played some of Pandemic Legacy Season 1, but I played it wrong, and I'll say wrong because I didn't play it wrong by the rules. But most people, I think, that play Pandemic Legacy, they will play multiple times a week and just keep playing and playing until, they finished it. We were playing like once a month, and it was not a great experience because you would pull it out and you'd be like, I know how to play Pandemic, but what am I doing here? What happened?
What's this stuff on the board?
If you misread something, you're messing up how something's used. And it was not a fun experience like that. So I do not recommend playing Pandemic Legacy once a month to try to get through it. I think I would have enjoyed the game more if I had tried to play it the other way. But as it was, we got to June or July or something and it just stopped. My wife and I were just like, we're not really enjoying this. So we didn't want to finish. But I will say that you talk about these being your like top 5 games of all time. We're going to be talking today about 4 of the top 5 games on BoardGameGeek as well, because obviously for 2015, the highest rated game on BoardGameGeek is Pandemic Legacy Season 1. And yes, at number 2 overall.
You can blame me. I'm a homer. I like those games. So.
I understand why games like this, particularly legacy games and large sprawling sort of games, campaign games or things, I think they will tend to have higher ratings because people who know they don't like that kind of game won't play it and won't rate it.
That's true.
Whereas, a short game, somebody might be like, well, I'll try it. And then they try it and they're like, yep, that sucked like I thought it would. And they give it a poor rating just because it's not for them. So, I think these types of games tend to bubble up in that numeric rating system. I have no scientific proof for that. This is just, I think.
Plus, the other side of that coin is also true. If you like it, you're going to play it. And it ingrains itself into you because the more you get into it, the more it's personalized to you and your group. And it just draws you in. So a well-done legacy or campaign game really is one of my favorite things, which we're going to probably talk about more as we go here.
Yeah, I mean, I like some campaign games. So I mentioned the group that I was playing Pandemic Legacy with. We had played through Charterstone together, which I thought was okay. But we had played through Mechs versus Minions together, and I thought that was an excellent game. And in fact, it is my number 1 game for 2016.
Very nice.
Mechs versus Minions. So it's a video game company, Riot Games, decided to make a board game, and they made a very good, very high quality production of this game, especially at the price point that
and like
they
out
sell
of
it
nowhere at the time. It was like, whoa! How did they get all this? It's all painted. Are you crazy? It was amazing. I agree.
Yeah, and in general, I find that programming games can be hit or miss because you're trying to do something, the other players are trying to do something competitive with you, and they screw each other up, and that's frustrating to some people. I don't mind that. I like Robo Rally. I like Tiny Epic Mechs. Some games it can be totally frustrating, but this game is a cooperative programming game. And so you are not trying to mess each other up. I mean, you might mess each other up, right? Because you get bugs in your program, or I don't know if they're called bugs or whatever, damage you take, for your mech. And so it does unpredictable things. But, you're drafting cards to slot onto your mech to either power up slots or give yourself some new ability. But you're doing that sort of collaboratively because you're trying to, achieve some goal. And I felt the goals they built well in the campaign. It started out, with some interesting stuff and then built on that. So it kept engaged. I can't remember. Was it like 16 times maybe we played the game?
I think it was 10, maybe 11, something
was
like
it maybe? Okay. I can't remember how many times we actually played it.
But,
look it up. But
in that, when you lost, you just replayed it. So I'm sure we played it 15 or 16 times because it was like you'd win 3 in a row like it was nothing. And then you have to play the same one 4 times till you beat it.
Yeah, we didn't have to. There was maybe 1 or 2 we replayed twice. But the boss,
aren't you fancy?
Well, the boss had this sort of luck of the draw thing too, right? So the first 2 times we came really close to beating the boss, and it's just, if those cards had been drawn in the other order, we would have won, and that sort of sucks as a, dramatic ending to this campaign game. But, so finally we beat it, and that's fun. And I still have this because it is, again, a campaign game, not a legacy game. So I can just play this again. You do power up. It has sort of a legacy element in that you're powering up your mech by putting new cards in the deck as you go through, but it's not legacy in the sense that you're actually destroying or modifying anything. You can just take those cards out and then put them back in as you progress through the campaign the second time. So I'm hoping to play this with my kids one day. But if you haven't seen this, well, you'll have seen it right now because we put pictures on the screen. Right, a beautiful, beautiful production, and that is not somebody's. Production. That is not somebody's custom, whatever painted extra
like
minis, whatever. This is
$75 when they
game.
came out.
Yeah, it was. Now I think it's more like $100 if they even have it in stock. Although the shipping
understood,
but even then, it's a great value.
It was $75 for all this. Where Kickstarters like this were going for $300 at that time. It was amazing production. And for the record, last time we ranked games, this was my number 7. This is an excellent game. I absolutely loved it. I think this is the only programming game that anyone in my group played that wasn't frustrating at all. Even if you're playing a programming game and enjoying it, you're going to be frustrated. But in this one, it's so goofy. Like you get these errors in your programming, so it's like, well, I mean to go forward, but whoa, I didn't make it. Oh no, I'm shooting the wrong way. Whoa,
and it's usually not a catastrophe, right?
Right,
Like
it's not a catastrophe. Yes, exactly. This game's awesome. I applaud your choice.
Yeah, great. So I'm guessing by your choice of language here, though, that this is not your pick for 2016. I'm guessing you're crossing over with BoardGameGeek.
Wait, we're still on the.
No, I jumped to 2016 with
you did?
Mechs versus Minions. This is Mechs versus Minions is 2016.
What was your 15 choice?
Oh, did I skip my 15?
I think so. Yeah.
Woo! I skipped my 15 entirely. I was too busy talking about Pandemic Legacy, and I was talking about campaigns, and I skipped right to my 2016. All right, well, let's talk about my 2015 then. Ready?
Yes. Hey, we're going back in time.
Hey, gaming through time, man. Taking it extra seriously this time. So my 2015 is a engine building game where you're basically literally building an engine. You're building a silly contraption, and that is Steampunk Rally.
Oh,
so
excellent.
This is probably the game that I feel gets the least amount of love compared to how much love I think it should be getting. Right? This game is not very highly rated, but it works for me on so many levels. So for one, it has simultaneous play. So you can play simultaneous play. So you can play a large number of players. I think 7 or 8, maybe 7, I think is what it supports. So you can play with a lot of players. And you have, but it's not like just some simple decision thing either. You go around and you draft cards, and you have to decide with those cards, am I going to use these as machine parts that I'm putting into my ridiculous contraption, which I'm racing down this racetrack? Or am I going to use that card to get something, some cogs or dice or whatever? Like, it's very tempting to just like, ooh, I'm going to build this into my bot. I'm going to build this into my bot. I'm going to build this into my bot. And then it's time to race, and you're like, I don't have any dice, and dice are what power the machine parts that you put in there, right? So you have to roll these dice, and then you have to place them on there, and they trigger different parts of your machine, and then they stay there. So you have to figure out a way to either vent those dice to get them off so you can put more dice down, or when you're traveling along the track, you can take damage, and when you take damage, you can just throw machine parts off to account for that damage. It's like, I'm going to fill this machine part off, this jet engine, with a bunch of red dice or whatever, and then it's full, and I'm going to trash it, and then I'm going to put a hover thing on there or some legs and walk the next part. It's ridiculous. It's got the full steampunk theme going on. It's got a whole, host of inventors that they have the history of, right? And this was a Kickstarter from way back, early when I was back in Kickstarters, I guess, probably. And I just like, oh, that seems interesting. And I got it. And I was just like, this is great. And my group loved it. This is great. And then, collected all the extra inventors for it. And yeah, anytime I have a large group come over, this is one of those games I'm like, this is on the list of games, we can play, because we can play through a full game in an hour and a half, 2 hours. And, it's.
Well, I haven't played this. I'm pretty sure Tiff hasn't either. So we'll have to play soon. So.
I mean, if you like rolling dice and then placing dice and building an engine,
what? Why would I like dice? That's ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, some people don't like the randomness, but I love it in this game. Right. Okay.
Right.
So that was 2015.
That was 2015.
Right. And then 2016, I skipped to Mechs versus Minions.
Yes, Mechs versus Minions. Fine choice. I applaud you, sir.
And then I'll look into the future and say that you're crossing over with BoardGameGeek for your 2016 pick.
Probably.
Which is
Star Wars Rebellion. This is previously I spoke about. I lost my train of thought. Previously, I spoke about War of the Ring in one of our other videos, and how that was the Lord of the Rings in a box. Star Wars Rebellion is Star Wars in a box. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Just like War of the Ring, It's another one of those, well, you can play with 4. No, you can't. You're just splitting up the duties between 2 people. This is a 2-player game. But it's absolutely fantastic. It's really a cat and mouse game. It's not nearly as 2 completely different games as War of the Ring is. It's more of a same game cat and mouse style. So basically, the Empire is just trying to find the rebel base, and the rebels are just trying to survive long enough that they can get enough influence through the Senate and whatnot to be able to win the game. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It plays differently. It feels different on both sides, because when you're the Rebel Alliance, you absolutely feel like you're being hounded and everything's so stressful. And when you're the Empire, the opposite's true. You're like, I gotta find them. So, and it has these big old space battles. It has characters in there, basically everything from like episodes 4, 5, 6. And then I think they put in like Rogue One and a couple of things also in there. So it's that whole saga in a box. You can send all the people out on little missions to do things, and you can counter those missions. And there's just so many things going on here. And when you play this game, it's long, but you feel like you played the Star Wars saga when it's over. I've never walked away from this going, well, that was okay. Every time I've played it, I was like, this was fantastic. It was so much fun. Thanks for playing. So my number 1 for 2016 is Star Wars Rebellion.
I've played this at a con one time. I played it 4-player, which you can do, although it's basically a 2-player game still at that point. But the other players were experienced at it, but I wasn't. So I tried something that they had never seen before. I was the commander of the Rebel fleet, I guess. Sure. And so it was a sort of central planet, maybe Kashyyyk. I can't remember on the map. I just pulled all my forces in like a Pearl Harbor style attack. Like, I'm just going to direct confront, try to destroy the Imperial fleet here. And then I did a bunch of damage there, and that suckered them in there. And then I kept just sort of focus and battle here, and that almost kept the Empire distracted long enough for us to get away, to outlast the timer or whatever. But it was close. It didn't quite work. But everybody really enjoyed it because, they played the game before, and I guess maybe they were all expecting sort of the same scripted moves or whatever that they normally see or whatever. But no, not with me in charge of the fleet.
Well, that's awesome. Well, that's one of the great things about these games. This one, War of the Ring, is that you can play these games in a universe that you are well familiar with and play around with it. Play around with the story a bit. See what happens if you do different things. They're a lot of fun.
Yeah. Admiral Jenkins, follow me. All right. Well, anyway, I thought maybe you would cross over with BoardGameGeek, but you did not.
I did not. Is it Terraforming Mars?
It is Terraforming Mars, which is number 5 maybe on BoardGameGeek right now. It's in the top 5. So Terraforming Mars it's a card game with a map, and on the map you're trying to put down cities and oceans and forest tiles. Is that what they're called? I don't know. Greenery. Greenery. And you're trying to raise the oxygen, you're trying to raise the temperature. Basically, you're just trying to make Mars habitable. But it's a competitive game. So you are, and there, in some variants, you draft the cards, but otherwise you get cards and you have to pay for those cards to keep them. And then those cards have synergies between them. They'll have tags on them so that if they're played down in your tableau, other cards might work off of those. There are awards that you can win by sort of being the first to get to some level of something, but there's only a limited number of them. Not all of them will score. Milestones, same thing. They have to be funded. Somebody has to make the decision to put money into those to fund them. And then the goal also has to be achieved for somebody to get points at the end of the game. So there's a lot going on as far as the way you can score the game, and there's just a lot of cards.
There was a lot of cards.
A lot of interplay between the cards. The interplay is done pretty well. Some people complain a little bit about the randomness, like if they're trying to do something they can't find complementary cards because there's 200 or plus cards in the deck. But I think, overall it's a pretty solid strategy game, and I do enjoy it. It runs a little long for my tastes.
It's true.
It's a long game. 2.5 to 3 hours, depending on player count and who you're playing with. But I mean, it is a satisfying experience. I can see why it is so highly ranked at BoardGameGeek, and it is, it's in my top 100 somewhere. I don't remember.
Yeah, understood. This is one of my favorite games too. This is very high up on my all-time list. And in honor of Tiffany, this would absolutely have been her choice. This is in her top 2 or 3 picks of all time also. I think it's a great game. It is a bit long. I think a bit random criticism is valid if that kind of thing bothers you. It does not bother me. I like that there's a billion cards and you never know what you're going to get, and you do your best you can working them together to build an engine. I love that. So, Terraforming Mars.
All right. We ready to move on to 2017, or did I mess up again?
All together, all at the same time, yes.
Okay, well, I will let you go first on 2017 because I'm pretty sure you're going to cross over. I didn't know before, but here I'll eat my non-existent hat if you're not crossed over with the BoardGameGeek #1 for 2017 and also the #1 rated game on the entire website, which is
Gloomhaven. Absolutely. This is my pick for this year, my #1 overall, and as Steve, you just said, BoardGameGeek's #1 game of all time. I think it's absolutely fantastic. If you've watched us at all over the past couple of years, I've probably talked about this every other month, give or take. For some reason or another, I get an excuse to slip it into a conversation. Tiffany and I have played a ton of Gloomhaven. We love the Gloomhaven. It's fantastic. It's interesting because it presents itself as a dungeon crawler, but it's not really a dungeon crawler. Really, it's more of a puzzle to see if you can get the objectives done before the time runs out. And if you're not familiar with the game, you have a hand of cards, which you can change in between missions. And when you level up, you get more cards to make choices from. But your base hand size never changes. And it depends on the character that you play. A character that you play might have a hand size of 8. A character I play might have a hand size of 11. But the point is, you only ever take that many cards into a battle with you. And on your turn, well, before your turn, but in the planning stage or whatever, everybody chooses 2 cards out of their hand. And and they all have numbers on them. And one of them is going to be your top card, and one of them is your bottom card. And your top card is going to be your initiative. It's going to be the number on the card that you played. And they each have a top action and a bottom action. And you play one top action from one card and one bottom action from another card. And there's a whole lot of times in this game because the initiative is so, I don't know, huge as far as it goes for the whole experience. Your whole plan to use this top and this bottom might go out the window. By the time you go, maybe 3 enemies and 2 of your friends have already gone. And now what you plan to do makes no sense. So now you got to adapt. And well, the top and bottom opposite, though, that kind of works. So I just love this game. The puzzle is in those cards. And a lot of the times, if the very good cards, the ones that really do a lot of damage or really let you move a lot or whatever, those are going to be burn cards. So use it one time and it's out of the game. Problem is, your deck is your life, which is basically the timer for the game. So this is what I was saying before. There's no timer. You don't put on a 20-minute timer and say, all right, let's go. No, it's your deck. And when you burn a card, that's one of your life points that you just took out of the game. So it's this amazing little puzzle of all of these dungeon crawlery things going on and special abilities and all this stuff. But it's really just about trying to figure out how to work these cards to get to the objective before you run out of cards. I think it's absolutely fantastic. It's my #1, as I've said. It has been. It probably will be for quite a while. We don't play that much anymore, but we played a ton of the board game, and we played a ton on Steam after the board game. I highly, highly recommend the Steam iteration of this, as it were. It's incredible. There's multiple game modes, and it's just fantastic. And it takes the one annoying thing in this game, which is the monster movement. And if you play on Steam, the computer takes care of that, and you don't even have to worry about it. It's just fantastic. Gloomhaven. I can't talk enough about Gloomhaven, how much I love it.
Well, it's funny because for 2017, I went almost the opposite side of the spectrum from you, because I really feel that there has been a renaissance in quality party games recently.
I agree, within the past few years. Yes.
And so for 2017, I have picked one of my 2 or 3 favorite party games of all time, and that is Werewords Deluxe Edition. I have the Deluxe Edition, but just Werewords plain is fine as well. So Werewords is basically 20 questions. So there's an app And the app, lets somebody pick a word, the mayor, pick a word that everybody else is supposed to guess. And they guess by asking you yes, no questions. And as the mayor, you have little discs and you're like, yes, no. And there's a few others like maybe, so close, tokens that you can send out. Those tokens are limited. They are a timer. There is also a timer, but those tokens are also a timer. If you run out of those tokens, which can be strategic, if you run out of those tokens, it also ends. So the mayor wants people to get stuff, and that's just 20 questions. But then it has the whole werewolf layer on top of that, right? So some of the people who are trying to guess are werewolves, and so they know what the word is, but they don't want everybody else to get to the word. So they can ask questions that seem plausible but are misleading. Oops, I didn't realize, I didn't mean to take it in that wrong direction, right?
Right.
And
or
then,
that means the same thing that you asked? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and so they can sort of burn some of those questions, right? That's another strategy they can do to sort of, reduce the supply of questions. Then there's also, you can have like a seer, and there's a bunch of other roles. So you can have the seer who knows who the werewolves are, but can't let on that they know who it is. And then, of course, the weirdest play of this game is when the mayor is a werewolf.
Yes.
So the person who is answering your questions doesn't want you to get the answer and can be misleading about how they answer. Still it's just yes, no, or whatever, right? They can outright lie too.
But they'll probably
that's
get
a good way to get caught, right?
Lie. Yeah.
If somebody remembers,
right?
If somebody remembers, like, what do you mean you said that was bigger than a Volkswagen? It's not.
Right.
They can be like, well, I don't know.
It's not? Well, what kind of Volkswagen are you thinking about?
So anyway, the reason this is so high on my list in my top 100 games of all time and why I picked it for this year is because, man, we have such a good time playing this. It's not really a brain burner, although it does. There's thinking involved, right? It does work your brain out a little bit, but it's just, I've never had a bad play of this game. Everybody is just like, well, let's play it. I've never played it once, right? It's always, let's play it again.
I agree with that.
Play it again, right? We'll play it several times. And sometimes we'll even almost be like it's going to be the filler for the evening. And then we'll end up playing it for an hour,
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I doubt we've ever played this less than 5 times in a row because it's so fast. It's just it's like 5 minutes maybe from beginning to end. Yeah. And then, it's fun. It's fun every time. We just played this a couple of weeks ago. This is another great pick, Steve, because this is a great game. It's very fun. Yes.
Yeah. Probably couldn't be much more different from Gloomhaven, but
it's true. But but I love it. We cover all spectrums here. So
also, I've never played Gloomhaven, so
well,
I couldn't go there.
That's one of those things where you're like, "Oh, we should play," but I'm like, "Oh man, that's such a beast." You should play on Steam.
Yeah, maybe I'll get around to it one of these days. I don't. Maybe when my kids are older, they would be interested in sort of a campaign type game like that.
Yeah,
right?
maybe.
So, we'll see. I don't know. All right, so let's move on to 2018 then, and I think I'm going to shoot this over to you again because I'm going to expect that you're going to cross over with BoardGameGeek because this is BoardGameGeek's number 1 rated game for 2018 is the number 1 rated strategy game on BoardGameGeek and the number 3 rated game overall. And I know you like this game, although I don't know if it's the top of your list.
It's got to be. We're talking about Brass Birmingham, right?
No, we're talking about Brass Birmingham.
Birmingham. Yes. Brass Birmingham.
Yes, that is what we were talking about. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is my top pick for this year. Like you said, top 3 or number 3 game on BoardGameGeek. I absolutely love Brass Birmingham. This is one of those games. This came out of nowhere for me. All right. I never played Brass, which became Brass Lancashire. I never played that. I thought that game looked hideous, which doesn't really concern me that much. But it was one of those things like, it looks hideous and boring. I don't really want to play that. And I just happened to go to a friend's house after the reprint, which included Brass Birmingham, a new game in the same line. And he was like, well, we're going to play this today. And I was like, okay, whatever. I'll play anything kind of a thing. I was blown away. How awesome that game was. I came home. Tiffany didn't make it to that particular game day. I came home and I was like, I played the greatest game. It's so awesome. I can't get it out of my head. It's so good. And it was just like after an hour and a half drive home, I was that amped up. Like, I can't believe how good this game is. Brass Birmingham. It's really hard to describe. I know I'm just kind of just gushing about it in general, but it's incredibly strategic. It's also incredibly interactive in not a mean way. Could be a mean way, but that's not really the intention of what's going on here. Basically, all right, so you have a hand of cards, and one of the things that makes this game really interesting, which sounds stupid until you actually play it, is there's all these different actions that you can do on your turn, okay? And every action requires a card. But only one of the actions does it actually matter what that card is. So when somebody says that to you, you're like, that sounds dumb. That's why one of the reasons I never played it. But it's so crunchy of a decision because the timing of all these different actions and getting everything to work right for you and what you're trying to do makes that such a hard decision. Because yeah, it doesn't matter what I play for this action or the next action, but I need to set something up. I'm working towards a goal, and I have to be very careful about what cards I just throw away because when I'm ready to do that one particular action, I absolutely have to have the right card to go. And depending upon how things go, it might be one of two places. I might get possibly shut out of one of the two places. And if I'm discarding cards, I got to be really sure that I'm going to the right place with this, or I just end up with the wrong card at the wrong time. It's just a fantastic strategy game. When you build things on the map, like the coal and the iron in this, other people can use it, which is both a good and a bad thing. If I'm building it for myself to build railroads, I don't want you taking my coal. But if you take my coal, it flips my building and I get to score that. So sometimes you put things out there hoping other people are going to take your stuff. And sometimes you're hoping, I hope they don't take my stuff. And you just never really know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. And sometimes it goes the opposite. Sometimes you're like, I need this for myself badly. And then somebody takes it and it's like the world fell out. But then like a turn later, it all worked out right. And somehow I'm better off that they did take it. This game is so magical to me. It is like the epitome of strategy games to me. To me, there's so much of the interaction going on the board at the same time, crunchy personal decisions. It's just beautiful. I've never played a game of this that I wasn't amazed by when I walked away from it. Fantastic.
You know, I was surprised to read on the BoardGameGeek page for it that it says that it's a dramatically different experience, Brass Birmingham, than Brass Lancashire.
I think it is. I think it's enough that based upon the tradition that we've set in here, in theory, this could have been lumped under Brass Lancashire, but I did not. I specifically kept it out for this year because I think it is a different experience. There's a whole lot of the same mechanisms going on, but it just feels different. Brass Lancashire feels like you're definitely going this, like you're doing this stuff. You're doing this stuff. And this just seems more like there's this stuff you can do. So it just feels a little bit more inclusive, like it's not on rails as much. On rails. There you go. So they're different. I like this one slightly better than Brass Lancashire.
Most people do.
Slightly. You know, if this didn't exist, I'd be extremely happy with Brass Lancashire. But this does exist, and it's fantastic. And I highly recommend that you give it a try. It's very heavy. It's kind of long. So I'm not saying run out and buy it right now because there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be like, this is way too heavy and way too long. And I get that. But for me, it's perfect.
Nice. Well, no one will say that my 28 pick is way too heavy or way too long because I'm going back to the well of party games. As I mentioned, a lot of great party games. This is the party game that I'm going to pull out if somebody is over or I'm at somebody's place, they want to play a game and they've only ever played Parker Brothers or Hasbro games or something like that. This is the game I'm going to pull out, and that is Just One.
Awesome
because
choice. I
can teach that in just minutes. We can be up and playing. It's cooperative, so there's none of that tension of competition. because you never know necessarily how dynamics are going to be, right? And it's just, and again, just like I mentioned with Werewords, it's just fun. We did a game night at my office, and I brought, a bag full of games that were mostly on the, introductory spectrum. So, I had like Quacks, I had Kohaku, I had some simpler games like that, and I had just one in there. And some other people had brought some other games, and I pulled just one out, and we started playing it, and they just wanted to play it over and over and over and over. And then I left eventually, I couldn't stay the whole night. I left like an hour and a half later, and I was just like, I guess I'll pick this up on Monday or whatever, whatever, you're still playing just one. Okay, great. Have fun, and it was just fun. And it was fun because how people were playing it. Like there was one guy who just kept giving the most obscure clues, right? That were related to some obscure anime or something else or whatever. So if you happen to know that thing and were a fan of that thing, then bam, you got it from his clue alone. You would get it. And he never crossed over with anybody. But 90% of the time, we were all like, and we were playing with friends of his too, right? So it's not like it was just, a mishmash of wrong generations or things. But 90% of the time, people were like, what were you thinking with his clue? But, who cares? What was our score? Is there a score in this game? I don't care. Who cares? We had fun.
Yeah,
that's the point, right? Yeah.
You get some right, you get some wrong. You look at it, it tells you were smart or you were stupid, but that's not the point. The point is just playing this game.
I played this game on the Dice Tower Cruise for the first time, and I just immediately got it the next time I saw it on sale somewhere, right? And that was the other thing, right? It frequently goes on sale for $12.
Yeah.
You cannot beat an experience like this for $12. Come on.
100%. I agree.
That's less than a movie ticket in some places.
I agree. It's absolutely fantastic. This is one of those, you're right. It is incredibly fun to play this game. And this is one of these games that when you get people in that don't normally play games, like you said, they want to play this for hours because they don't understand that there are these kind of games out there that are just fun to play. They've been playing Monopoly and Connect Four their whole lives. You know what I'm saying? And then you play something, you're like this, you're like, I'm having so much fun. And it's just fantastic. I agree.
Yeah, great. All right. So that was 2018. We're moving on to 2019. And I don't offhand know what your pick is here. So
this
why
is
don't
the
you
one
tell
I'm
us?
not going to cross over with. Yes.
Oh,
so
yeah. I don't think you're going to cross over here.
My pick for 2019 is Clank Legacy Acquisitions Incorporated. I absolutely love Clank Legacy. I liked Clank a lot, and I like Clank in Space a lot. And then we just I didn't even know this was coming out. We kind of went into our local game store one day, and we're wandering around. I was like, what is that? What? I've never even heard of this. What is this? This is Clank Legacy? Seriously? And immediately on the spot, bought it and took it home. It's probably the most legacy game I've ever played. I mean, you are constantly reading things and putting stickers on and getting these cards out. And so first off, if you're not a huge fan of that whole aspect of legacy, probably stay away from this because this one has the most of that stuff in it than of any legacy game I've ever played. And I've played a lot of legacy games. And I'm telling you, it's chock full of get these cards and add them to the deck, and I'll put this sticker on the board and read this passage. And to me, it was fantastic. I absolutely love the story. I love the progression. I thought the way that they chained the different adventures together to form a story was fantastic. It didn't hurt that we played with, two of our best friend gamer couple people, but I don't care. It was fantastic. I absolutely love this game. We had such a great time playing it. It's probably going to start to fall off my list here and there just because it was a one time. It's one of those where, yes, you can play it again after you're done, but now you're just playing Clank with some bunch of weird rules that I'm not going to remember. So it's done. You know what I'm saying? But it was so much fun. I highly recommend this. If you're at all interested in Legacy, play Clank Legacy Acquisitions Incorporated.
All right. I wouldn't mind playing it. I haven't played any Clank games.
Really?
So, yeah, I would. I'm not a big deck building fan, but I would play. Clank in Space probably. If I had to choose one, that's probably where I would start. I don't know.
That's a good one. We should play sometime.
Yeah, we should. So for 2019, this again is a game that I played for the first time on the Dice Tower cruise. And, it's funny because I played it and it was my last game of the night. I went back to my cabin. It's midnight. I'm floating in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean somewhere. I pull out my phone and I arrange a trade with a guy in California to get a copy of this game with some other game that I have at home. I'm like, I'll ship you this game when I get home in a few days, So anyway, this game is It's a Wonderful World.
Okay.
So
I've heard good things, never played.
Yeah, it has thematically, it's got this sort of dystopian future thing going on. And this is a card drafting game. So, you get a hand of cards and you pick one of them and you pass the other cards along and you get another one. When you get a card, it's multi-use. So you have to decide, what am I going to do with that? You can either put it down in your tableau as going into construction, or every card has, I think it's the bottom right corner, the resources you can discard this card to get, which you then have to put on the cards you already have under construction, basically. And when you finish a card being constructed, you sort of move it over to your Empire card area. And so during the end of round thing, it will give you some benefits. So even the resources get produced in a certain sort of series. So you actually could have some resource that gets produced at the end of round period, which you could put on a card to complete the card, which then produces in the next phase. Like, you can get this weird chain thing going on. You're competing with other people to say, like, I'm making the most of the blue or the green or whatever resources, because there's a reward of who makes the most of each round. And then some of those cards, in addition to giving you resources, there are ways that you can score points. So they'll have tags on them, or they'll give you points for tags or something like that. So you've got all these interesting little decisions going on. You're trying to sort of build up an engine of generating a lot of, say, blue to get have the most blue in a round to get whatever it is, the financier token, which you might get points off a financier token, or et cetera. And it's one of those games where, like, you sit down to play it and it's like, this game is 4 rounds long. And you're like, how am I going to get anything done in 4 rounds?
Right.
And then the 4th round, you're like, bam, 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 give me that, this, that. And you're just like blowing up, and it's just one of those things that escalates really quickly. So this is one of those games where I feel like I might always want to play this over Seven Wonders.
Interesting.
It is easier.
That's high praise indeed.
It is easier to explain because the symbology is not as cryptic. It is still a card drafting game. And I feel like it has, like I said, like that engine building versus more like set collection or something, whatever you would call Seven Wonders. I mean, at least the science is set collection. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like the reason you're getting the cards works better in It's a Wonderful World than in Seven Wonders. So I like Seven Wonders a lot, but it's fallen down a little bit. And this game is the reason why.
That's interesting. I love a drafting game, so we'll have to give it a shot.
Yeah, and there are expansions for this. There's even like a legacy add-on to it you could do. I haven't done that. I did get the expansion because I think it added another player and just more cards. So more cards is always fun. And
I think more stuff.
It added like one new mechanism, like corruption or something, so you can get cards that are more powerful, but also have a negative thing or whatever. So there's a lot of interesting stuff you could add on, but just the base game is just a lot of fun. I really like this game. It's a Wonderful World.
Nice.
So all right, what do we got? One more game to go here, right? We're in 2019. And we have BGG's number one. You know what BGG's number one for 2019
is? It's got to be Wingspan. It's got to be Wingspan.
It's Wingspan. Wingspan is... I can't think of another game in sort of recent memory that has entered the popular lexicon more than Wingspan, right? Wingspan has sold millions of copies and shown up in places just totally unexpected. I know somebody... she, the wife of one of my good friends, and she likes to take pictures of birds. And so she read an article about this game. So she got this game and she was like, I don't know how to play it. I'm like, oh, come over, I'll teach you. Right. And so they came over one day and I taught them how to play but it was just that, like, she's not a gamer. She just has a birding magazine, and this game was in the birding magazine, so she got it. Like I can't think of another game recently that does that. But I do feel that it is maybe not the best ambassador for the hobby for that exact same reason. She bought the game but couldn't figure it out.
I agree. People talk about this like it's some kind of gateway game. It's pretty complicated.
Yeah,
it's heavy. It's not heavy.
Well, it's not heavy, but
it's medium.
It has this one confusing mechanism, I think, right? So I like the whole engine building aspect in this game where you're sort of powering up one of the areas, the water or the grass or whatever, and you're saying, okay, I'm going to put this and this and this. So when I activate it, not only am I getting more of the thing, but then you get benefits from the different birds you've gotten down. But that mechanism confuses even people who have played a lot of games. They're like, what? Okay, so this is telling me what I get, but then I go back down the line, activating all the, no game before or since has done that. And I wouldn't recommend a game doing it like that. I think maybe you should find a better way to present that. So that is a little confusing. And I think that confuses a lot of new gamers. But, once you get past that and once you understand that, the game is pretty simple. Get some bird cards, play some bird cards. There's some objectives out here we can be fighting over, and the production, of course, from Stonemaier Games was very good. It came with a little birdhouse dice roller. It came with custom dice. It came with eggs that look like candy.
Yeah.
And all of the cards are individually illustrated birds. The production value here was really high. And the game, I think the game is solid, right? Like, I think it's well designed. It does, what it does really well. It's not one of my favorite games, but I would play it. If somebody wanted to play it, I'd play it, sure.
I enjoy it quite a bit. We haven't gotten it on the table in quite a while, but we play on Steam. We play a lot of Wingspan. I think it's well deserved. It's not my favorite game from this year, but I'm sure it's in my top 20, top 25. I think it's a fantastic game. And you know what? And actually, when you were describing It's a Wonderful World, it made me think of this game because very much like that. I mean, it's probably to a lesser degree in Wingspan, but at the beginning of the game, you hardly do anything. You have 7 actions. And it's like, I'll make eggs. You make 2 eggs. Big deal. I'll get one thing out of the bird feeder. And you lose actions every round. So by the end of the game, you have far less actions, but you're doing so much more. Instead of just getting one thing out of the bird feeder, now I'm getting 3 things out of the bird feeder and this other thing. And I'm going to tuck a card under this card and I'm going to draw a card. And at the end, I'm going to have to discard one. And this other thing's going to happen. Like, all these things happen as you go, and you set this engine up as you go. I think it's fantastic, really. Yeah,
I do feel it's a little anticlimactic at the end. Usually people are just laying eggs for points.
That's true. Usually, because, I've had that argument with myself playing the game. It's like, what are you going to just spend two rounds making eggs? And then I start counting points. I'm like, well, yeah, but that's how I get the most points at this point. So, yeah, I hear you.
That happens to me every time. The last round, I'm like, well, what can I do to get this bird down? I have to do that and that and that. Okay, so take 3 or 4 actions to get this bird down. I get more points laying eggs.
Or I can just lay 4 eggs 3 times in a row, and that's 12 points.
Yeah. So, but well.
Yeah.
But solid game. I will not begrudge BoardGameGeek's #1 pick.
Me either. That's a fantastic pick.
Wingspan. So, all right, we have just wrapped up 2015 to 2019. If you have any comments about the games that we just talked about or other games from those years that you think we overlooked or you just want to talk about, you can leave those in the comments below, or you can come join our Discord. So there's a link to our Discord below. We'll be happy to talk about these games with you. And like I said, stay tuned. There is one more episode coming. One more episode next week. We will drop the last episode of this, and it will be a treat. I promise. Go ahead. Promise live bears too.
And we're gonna have live bears. You have to come and see us. We're gonna have live bears. Come on. Awesome.
All right. Cool. Well, I'm Steven. That's Erock. We're from Just Got Played, and we will see you
next time. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, y'all.